I'm very big into data. I'm very big into analytics. I think that's a very important tool, but I don't think it's the way to
Mm.
run any kind of program because you're dealing with human beings.
Welcome to the Jamodi podcast, where we interview coaches and leaders to find out not just what they do, but how they do what they do. Becoming the best version of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we are joined by the founder and author of the Coaching Toolbox, Brian Williams. A retired basketball coach, Coach Williams has dedicated the last 13 years to the Coaching Toolbox, the leading source for all basketball coaching tools, plays, workouts, practice ideas, and basketball quotes and inspiration. To learn more, check out coachingtoolbox.net. Before we hear from Coach Williams, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast. Man, I really appreciate you taking the time and doing this.
Oh, absolutely. I've been looking forward to it.
Ready to launch into it?
Yep,
All right.
absolutely.
How does culture drive performance?
Well, to me, culture is three things. One is how you treat each other on a daily basis and how the team interacts, how the coaches interact with the players. I also feel like it's the life lessons that a coach teaches through his program or her program. So then the third thing I think are you call them, I think, non-negotiables or standards of performance or whatever you want to call them. So to me, that's the third thing. So I think the way that the culture drives your performance is it's a little bit of each of those. You know, as a team, you're going to pick each other up when a teammate makes a bad play, when a teammate's struggling, you're going to help them, through that. I think Duke, Coach Krzyzewski says next play mentality. When you're helping people like that, when you're reminding them of what the culture is, what the standards are, that you don't put your head down, you do move on to the next play. Then I also think, to me, the most important thing in sports, whether it's basketball, volleyball, football, because the vast majority, as we all know, of the kids are not going to be professionals. A lot of them will go into education, which I think is good training for becoming an educator and a coach. But at the same time, I really believe that the life lessons are the most important thing that sports is for. So when you're talking about your culture and you're talking about, bouncing back from a loss, not overreacting to a win, understanding how to accept both of those, understanding that it's not the 20 nights, 25 nights, whatever it is of the game nights. It's the rest of the year of the preparation that went into it. It's the practices. It's the giving your best effort, um, not making excuses. All those things, I think, whatever your culture and the things that you teach as a coach, to me, that's really what the performance is, because I'm very big into data. I'm very big into analytics. I think that's a very important tool, but I don't think it's the way to run any kind of program because you're dealing with human beings. And when you're dealing with human beings, if it's not about relationships, if it's not about learning life lessons that are going to carry over later on, that are still applicable in your games, in their everyday life currently, then if you're not setting a little bit higher standards than, say, a classroom teacher can, and certainly academics is more important than basketball, but I think you can teach lessons in basketball that you can't teach in academics. I think one of those being there's a winner and a loser in basketball. If you're in an AP class, a math class where everybody's going to be a college, going to college, they could all potentially get A's, and certainly A's and B's, and everybody's going to be above average. But, in competitive sports, and I think basketball, in my mind, is the most competitive sport, you're going to have a winner and a loser. And if you win half the time and lose half the time, then you're quote unquote average. And you got to learn to deal with that. I think in your mind, you're not average. You gave your best effort, but maybe your record looks like it's average.
Yeah.
So I think those kind of lessons, in my opinion, is what drives success, and that's what drives and gives kids lessons that they're going to take well beyond their college years if they go into college to play, or the very few that do play professional. I think those lessons and that culture is what drives success. current success and then future success for those athletes.
I would agree with you that basketball is the most competitive sport. And I think, but a lot of coaches in their sports think that way as well. What, in your opinion, what makes basketball just such a competitive game to play?
Well, I think for one thing, it's a lot of exposure. I mean, and I grew up in Indiana. I coached in Indiana. I was a below average high school player in Indiana. But still, when we were growing up, every boy and girl wanted to play basketball. And you start out with little dribblers. We had, 60, 70 kids playing in our elementary program. And then by the time we were seniors, there were 4 of us that were still on the team. So I think the fact that everybody really enjoys playing it.
Hmm.
I think the fact that there's a lot of exposure, there's a lot of, you know, you have opportunities to get better. But you don't have to have a lot of money to get better. Like you can go
Yeah.
into the school and play by yourself. And there's YouTube things you can find of how to improve yourself. So I think it just keeps getting better and better because of how popular it is. And then
Yeah.
the bottom line is in a high school, you're talking, 4 grades, and you have 5 kids that start and maybe 2 or 3 that play off the bench. So the spots are very limited. It's a very high exposure sport. And the other thing I think is, to me, and again, I agree with you. I know that other coaches of other sports think their sport is the most competitive, but I think in basketball, if you look at the athleticism, to me, the NBA players are more athletic than anybody. And
In the world. Yep.
I'm talking about all around. I mean, you got to have hand-eye coordination. You got to be quick. You got to be strong. You got to be able to jump. You have to, and then like I'm not putting football down, but you can have a specific role in football
Hmm.
where all you're going to do is just tackle somebody or
Yeah.
knock somebody.
Yeah.
But if that's all you can, if you can only do one thing in basketball, unless you're just a dead eye 3-point shooter.
But those dudes can guard too. And those dudes can
Exactly.
handle it too. So yeah, it's a sport where any player out of the 5 can affect a possession at any given time in a big way. I think that's really unique.
And it takes so many different skills to be able to even get on the team and then to be able to get on the floor as one of the boys, girls, men, or women that's playing. I think it's to me that's what makes it so competitive and the most demanding play.
How do you live out your culture on a daily basis?
Well, in my opinion, it needs to be something that the players have helped to create. I think if it's just coach driven only, then I think you're not going to be living it out, because anything that someone helps create, they're going to believe in more because it's a part of them and it's not something that's just thrust upon them. Hey, this is our culture, like it or leave it. I think if you can have the players kind of help develop, but I also think as the leader, the coach is definitely responsible for shaping how that culture is developed and shaping the ideas and exposing the players to ideas that are very positive culture builders, or that you're not ever going to have the exact same culture from team to team, but there are certain things that don't ever change. That I think there's a saying, tradition never graduates. I think culture never graduates. It just may be shaped a little bit differently or framed a little bit differently. So I think it was something that the kids helped create. And then to me, the head coach and the assistant coaches, they need to embody that. I don't think anyone's ever been well, I shouldn't say that. I think there's a few, and I guess it's not good to name names, but it's never do as I say, not as I do. To me, in the end, that's not successful because it's not a good experience for the kids.
Right.
And so if you're a coach that believes in culture, and you have to live it out, and that's really difficult. I understand as a coach, there's a lot of pressure on coaches from winning and losing, from parents. Most coaches, including yourself, are teachers. And so when and even if you're not a teacher, you got other jobs. There's just so many pressures of most high school coaches. That's not their main income. So they're doing something else. They've got all these pressures on them. And sometimes it's hard, culture can take a back seat. Well, that really wasn't the best effort tonight, but we won, so we can move on from it. I'm not accusing. I've certainly, I've experienced all this myself, but I think with the pressures, it's really difficult, and the coach needs to be the driver and the leader of the culture,
Hmm.
but it needs to be a group mentality, not just a single person saying this is the way it is.
I really like that idea of the players having a little bit more say in what the culture is. I think I've been guilty of from year to year. All right. Not that culture changes from year to year, but even just either the acronyms that you choose or what specifically your standards are. I just think of the gold standard book by about the Olympic team, the first Olympic team that Coach K took over when he sat all those pros down and said, "Hey, what are we going to be about? What's our culture going to be?" And he had a few things in his mind that he knew he wanted to have on that list, but then he allowed Jason Kidd and Kobe Bryant and all those guys to outline the rest. I think that could be powerful for coaches to do.
And I think even I don't know if you've done any reading. Corey Dobbs, Academy for Sport Leadership. His model is a leader in every locker, and so he believes that as coaches, we owe it to every kid to teach culture, to teach leadership, not just your senior captains who have
Yeah.
lettered for 3 years and started, but that freshman who maybe isn't even going to play past this year, they're going to be a leader. They're going to be a parent. They're going to be a leader in their job. They're going to be a leader in their church, in their community, coaching little league, whatever it is. So they all need to teach. They all need to learn leadership skills. So I think that you're right. You're going to have some kids that stand out, but I think also you need to make sure you're involving who you would consider your least effective
Yeah.
player on your freshman roster, just as much as your all conference senior who's been with you for several years.
Yeah, it could be really easy to focus on your best players and put them in those positions of leadership. What's something? So I thought about like it's not just what we do, but how we do what we do. Like, what's a way to incorporate leadership and give them more opportunities? And what do you think about like we have certain days of the week that we discuss different things, but one is Wednesday. It's Wisdom Wednesday, and having players giving them time to prepare for something that they're going to share with the team on their Wisdom Wednesday, and it could even just be a quote or something that they thought was interesting, but that we could use as a team and a unit that might help in involving some of those younger players or different players.
I think that's great. And actually, when you kind of started that, that's actually what I was getting ready to.
Oh,
I really didn't. I like the Wednesday wisdom, um, but I was thinking that that's the kind of thing you can do. And even if you talk about your culture, let's say that one of your keystones in your culture is teamwork. Well, you can have those kids talk about teamwork, what it means to them. And a lot of times, having it come from a kid that maybe doesn't play as much, or maybe even at all until the game's been decided, they have a little bit different perspective on what teamwork is.
hmm.
Or they have a little bit different perspective on what hard work is, what disappointment is, not getting into games as much. So, I think that's an absolutely great way to involve everybody.
What daily habits set you up for success?
Well, this is going to be kind of boring, the reason I'm going to tell you this is because I didn't do a good job of this as a young coach, but I really believe that just the fundamentals of making sure you get enough rest,
Hmm.
making sure that you drink lots of water during the day, making sure that you exercise. Again, it's easy, coach, to put all those things to the back burner. And also, I think, take some time just to kind of quietly think about what you want your program to be like, what you want your practice to be like, what you want your kids to get out of the program. And I know those are very basic, but John Maxwell, who I know a lot of coaches read his books, and if a coach hasn't read a John Maxwell book on leadership, he's just got some really tremendous stuff out there. And one of his laws, he calls it, is the law of the lid. And his concept is that a person cannot rise any higher than the level of the leader. So even if you've got a person and a player who's a potentially 9 on a leadership scale, and the leader's only a 7, then that 9 is going to be held down by the 7 because the 7's the leader. And I think if you are bringing your best self every day, and if you're not getting rest, you're not, I don't care who you are, you're not thinking clearly. If you're not drinking water, you're not thinking clearly. And those things are proven scientifically. No matter how tough you are, and I know there's a lot of coaches that are tougher than me, but you still need to rest. You still need to take care of your body, and you still need to clear your mind. It's not a like I have been doing some meditation, not in the traditional sense of like a Buddhist monk, sitting
Right.
down and doing the
But just
meditation
getting
position, but
quiet by
just
yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
and just being able to calm my mind. And again, because of all the pressures that come at you during the day. And, maybe if you're a teacher, you had to break up a fight in the lunchroom, and that kind of, where you got a kid that's acting up in your class, and you had to phone call and talk to the parents. So you've got all those things going around in your mind, your personal things with your family and what you want to accomplish. And the way the past year's been, everybody's been a
Hmm.
little bit out of whack mentally. So I think just taking some time to think about what's important. And again, I know that's a simple, boring answer, but I really wish I had developed the discipline earlier in my coaching career to do those things.
Yeah, I don't think that's boring in any way. I think it's really important for a great reminder for coaches to one, or teachers or anybody that's in a leadership position to one, take care of yourself. To take care of yourself mentally, physically. I can't imagine, or I know how out of shape I get throughout the season. It's just because I start to put those things, on a back burner. But like you said, if we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not mentally sharp or clear. It will affect our mood. I mean, we're supposed to be energetic, and we're supposed to be excited to do what we're getting to do. And the moment that fails, or we fail to do that, it affects our teams. And so great reminders for what we can be doing on a daily basis, and modeling for our players.
And I think about, when you get on a flight and they go over the safety instructions before they take off, they always say, in the unlikely event that you'll have to put your oxygen mask on, make sure you put yours on before you try to help anybody else. And I think that's the same thing for coaches. We got to put our oxygen mask on and bring our best self, or we're not going to be able to get the best out of our players.
What are the non-negotiables in your program?
Well, we had a list of priorities, and so for us, I was a public high school, not a private Christian school, but we made their personal spirituality beliefs as their number one. So we never talked about what they should believe or how they should practice, but whatever beliefs they had, we said that counts as your
Hmm.
thing you should consider the number one thing in the program. So if they had a church night on Wednesday night and they needed to miss practice, then that was an excused absence. The second thing is their personal and family health. So they need to take care of themselves. They need to take care of their family health. So again, if it was I'm not talking about a sore muscle or something like that, but if there was an injury situation that was affecting their personal health, if they were sick, then they're not going to play because they need to take care of themselves ahead of a basketball game. The third is citizenship, where any problems they get into in the school, or hopefully never happen, but anything in the community, those things were always more. Their behavior was more important than basketball.
Hmm.
Fourth was academics, and then basketball was fifth. So again, I didn't tell them what they had to do with their religious beliefs, but those other things, if they didn't put those ahead of basketball, then they were gonna basketball wasn't going to be an option because um, wasn't going to have people missing practice because they were in detention, or wasn't going to have didn't want to have people academically ineligible. But
Right.
more importantly than that, as a coach, you can have some effect on how they're acting in class. You can have some effect on how they're acting around school. And again, it's habits. You're building habits at a young age for them that hopefully will carry over. And the discipline that you try to have as a coach, then to me that discipline is hopefully will someday become self-discipline. But when you're young and influential. And I certainly don't think coaches are more important than parents. I don't think they're more important than teachers, but I really believe, I think maybe some of these things are cliches, but they're cliches I believe in, that I think it takes a village to raise a child.
Hmm.
And to me, as coaches, we're a part of that village. And what we have something that they love to do. They love to play basketball. Unfortunately, very few of them. I was an algebra teacher. Not a lot of kids wanted to come in and were excited about factoring binomials and trinomials.
They
But
weren't psyched to come to class and just get after it.
they didn't want to solve quadratic equations. They didn't want to do those things. But they do love to come and play basketball or volleyball or whatever your sport is.
Hmm.
So you, as a coach, I think can have an impact on them because of we have something they love, and if we say this is what you love, but you're going to have to be a good citizen, you're going to have to take care of your family, personal health, take care of your academics, put those things ahead of basketball, then um, I think that hopefully teaches them some life lessons and puts things in perspective for them. So that's maybe a little different than what a lot of programs do, but that was the list of priorities that we had. And it helped me make decisions. We had a kid that was going on a field trip for his class where it was a really good opportunity for him to go to a field trip, and it was the day before our regional, which in Indiana, that's the 41 sectional, and you're playing in the regional. And it was the day that we had a chance to go practice at the facility that we were going to play in.
Mm.
But when he came to me and he asked me, I didn't have to think, well, what, the academics is a priority. Unfortunately, it conflicts with basketball. But in this case, you need to go on your field trip. It's a very important part of what you're doing. So
I think those standards are great, and the fact that basketball is fifth out of that list, we want our players to know that we actually care about them. But I'm guilty of so many times only talking about basketball, only dealing with basketball, and it appears I only care about basketball. But when you have basketball at number 5 and there's 4 other areas that you're saying as their coach that are more important that you have to focus on, I would imagine the players would think that you care more about them as people than just as players.
well, I mean, I hope so. And number 6 on the list then was social. So if I had a date on Friday night, the practice
Just
of the game came
reschedule it.
first.
Yeah,
And
reschedule that date.
yeah, we did have. I didn't actually have this, but a coaching friend of mine, one of his senior players was dating a girl who was a freshman in college, and he had her sorority dance the night of one of their games. And he asked if he could go on that. And he said, "Well, you're not married yet, are you?" And he said, "No." And, well, she's not family, so that's social. That's after basketball.
That's good. The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products. What was your favorite shooting game, or maybe one you've learned recently?
Well, the one I have it's pretty old. I saw it at a clinic, and it's really the one that stuck with me. I think there's tons of great games, and as I've been doing my site and getting to know coaches, I've picked up a lot of them. But one that I like the best is called the 2-minute drill, and I'll kind of try to describe it here for you. But you need a timer in addition to the shooter. You don't need a passer, but you do need a timer. So the timer has a watch, stopwatch, phone, Apple Watch, whatever you got, and you're going to start it at 2 minutes. The player who's shooting is going to start 15 feet from the basket, and they're going to, as quickly as they can, they're going to finish, not just a layup, but some kind of a finish. So it's a reverse layup, a shot fake and finish, a rondo, whatever it is that you teach, a floater. They're going to make that. Then they're going to have to make a 15 to 20 foot shot, and then they have to make a 3-point shot. And they have to do all those while the clock is running. So if they take 10 shots to make all 3 of those, then that's what they do, and the clock keeps running. As soon as they make the third shot of the 3, you stop the watch, they go immediately to the free throw line while they're tired, and they have to make 2 free throws. And then if they make the 2 free throws, then that validates what they just made on those 3, and they call that level 1. So they've made the first level. And then the second level starts when they start again. So if it took them 35 seconds to make that first group, then they're going to be starting with 1:25 on the clock.
And
When
if
they
they
start their
missed and if they missed a free throw, they did not finish
don't get
level
it.
1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they lost it. So that puts a little pressure on the free throws. So that's why I like it, because you can make the shots and you're going as fast as you can. They're trying to do it as quickly as possible. So they're going to get winded. They're going to more of a game pace. And then when they get up there, then the pressure is all that work you just put in is wasted if you don't make the 2 free throws. So then if they make the 2 free throws, they get that level on the bank. If they don't make it, then it doesn't count, and they have to go back and start on whatever's remaining on the stopwatch. So in the example I gave, there's 1:25 left, and then you would start the clock as soon as they take off to get that finished shot. And obviously you could make it 2 3-pointers if you're not into shooting mid range or whatever. I to be honest, we did that drill when I was coaching, and I think now we would just probably shoot 2 threes instead. But regardless of how you run it, I like it because it makes them shoot game pace. You can make them make the shots that you want them to hit in the game, and then always those pressure free throws. I think it's important to shoot free throws and get a rhythm and get a routine and perform. But all that stuff is important, but also that added dimension of the pressure in the game. And I don't think you can ever simulate that in practice. But my way to simulate pressure free throws in practice is the heart rate. So that's why they go immediately to the free throw line, because it's not the same as your heart rate racing if you're a little nervous about shooting a free throw, but it's more like a game where you're not just, walking into the gym and shooting free throws cold. Your heart rate and blood pressure elevated a little bit, and then you have some pressure that there is some consequence. Make the free throws. So
I love that game. I'm going to be stealing it because it has a time component, which I really like. It has a certain amount of shot. Every shot that they're going to be taking has, even the layup has pressure, because you definitely don't want to waste more time on the layup. Like, you want to knock that down and then every other shot. But then it has free throw component, which some games do. But those not only is their heart racing, those free throws have to be made. So I think there's a lot to that game. So what do you call that? What did you have a cool name for it? Or
I just call it the 2-minute drill.
All right, that's it.
I picked it up from a longtime high school coach named Cliff Hawkins. Anybody that's been in, I know you're out in Texas, anybody that's been in Indiana knows who Cliff Hawkins is. And he was Luke Recker. I don't know if you remember that name, played in the Big Ten. He was his high school coach. And
awesome.
I heard him give that drill at a clinic, and that always stuck with me. And it was one of my favorites.
Stealing it.
It was the favorite drill that I had.
How do you build confidence in your players?
Well, I think, to me, there's 2 components to confidence. Confidence can come from actually achieving results or from being able to perform a specific skill. And I think that's an important part of it, something that you've demonstrated you can do. But I also believe you got to have kids that feel like they can do whatever is necessary, what needs to be done. I think that's the second part of confidence. I think as an adult, I heard the phrase that everything is figure outable, that to have confidence, whatever comes up, I can figure it out. If the faucet's leaking, I can figure out how to fix it. If it's, if there's something I need to get that's on sale, I can figure out how to find, the best price or whatever. So those are just a couple small examples. But I think with a team, giving them confidence by going over things in practice. So that's the first part. So, you're down 2 with 5 seconds to go and you got the ball to bounce on the side. You should have practiced that play over and over and over again so that they know exactly what they need to do. We've given them, here's our adjustments. If the defense fronts us, we're going to go throw it here. If they chase the screen, then we're going to look for this option. Whatever your play is, however you taught it, I believe in running the same play every time so that we can practice. Now, I'm talking about like for a game winner, not
Yeah.
every out of bounds play, but
Right.
in the course of the season, you're going to have 3 or 4 out of bounds plays. Um, we're down to, if it's short seconds, I believe in running the same thing because it's something we practice over and over again. Practice.
Yeah,
So they got
it's always a bad feeling when you know you're drawing up something that they haven't done before, and you're
absolutely.
hoping that these teenagers can
Yeah.
figure it out with all that pressure and time. Yeah.
But I think that gives them confidence that, hey guys, or I coach boys, but hey guys or girls, we've done this in practice. You know exactly what we need to do. Anything the defense can throw at us, we've prepared for it. So all we got to do is go out and run it. So that's a part of it. And then the fact that even if something comes up that isn't exactly what they've seen, if you prepared for it, then everything is figure outable. If they can come up with a way to do it. And I think another thing, this was a Dean Smith concept. And I found it to be effective. I always told our players that regardless of whatever happened, if it didn't work, it was my fault.
Hmm.
Like, I don't want you guys to worry that if you do what we practiced, you do what you've been taught, and if it doesn't work, I'll take the blame. And I thought a lot of times that helped. I remember particularly in a huddle my first year at school. We'd practiced to play, but it was our second game of the year. And we hadn't, um, obviously we hadn't practiced as much as we would later on in the year. And so they weren't totally familiar with it. And the guy that was inbound the ball said, "How do I know when to throw it or where to throw it?" And I said, "You just follow your instincts. And if it doesn't work, then I'll take 100% of the blame." And I could just kind of see the weight lifting from his shoulders. He didn't feel like it was as much a burden that he was there. It was a burden that we were going to share together. So I think the fact that you practice it, they know that they can adjust to things as they see them come up, and that you're willing to take the blame, and that they're not the ones that has to take all the criticism if it doesn't go well. I think those 3 things are, to me, important in helping players develop confidence.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Biology. What's your BSA score? The Biology Skill Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NIA and NJCAA to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 10-minute, 100-shot test can be taken for free today on the Biology mobile app. Elevate your game. How did individual skill work into your daily practice?
To me, that's really what it's all about. I think that in my mind, simple but sound and systems that fit your player's skills and abilities. And then, so in our practice, we spent 30 minutes every day on skill development. 30 minutes on offense, defense, 30 minutes on offense, team offense, 30 minutes on team defense, and then 30 minutes on situations and competitions. So with that skill being 25%, as the season went on, then we would, drop our practice from 2 hours down to 90 minutes, and then sometimes an hour at the end of the year. But it didn't matter if we had a half an hour on the floor because there was a girls' game that night or something. Then we were going to spend a half hour on skill development.
Hmm.
If we had a 90-minute practice, it was 30 minutes skill. 2-hour practice, 30 minutes skill. I just think that that's really what it's all about. I'm not saying that. I guess I am saying that if I had to choose one or the other, I'd rather have players that were skilled, that understood the game a little bit, as opposed to having a specific play for every single thing. I read this and I believe it. The team that won effective field goal percentage and turnover percentage had a higher effective field goal percentage and a lower turnover percentage. They won both of those categories, men's and women's NCAA tournament this year. That team won the game every time.
Wow.
So me being able to shoot and being able to handle the basketball. Now, obviously, it goes the other way too, because you're going to limit the other team's effective field goal percentage. Then you're playing some good defense. If you're going to cause the other team to turn the ball over if you can, then you're playing some pretty good defense. But I just think if you don't spend time working on kids being able to make baskets, game pace within the types of shots they get in the game with some defensive pressure, with some time and score pressure. And also being able to pass, catch, dribble the basketball to be able to put it in those positions where you can get shots. You can't do those things, then I don't think you're just wasting your time running offense and defense.
Yeah, the importance of skill work that you put into it, I think is impressive because it's the one thing that is easy to cut out as time goes on and you've got all these things that you feel like are so important. But like you said, if we have the ability to make more buckets, handle the ball and not turn it over as much, we'll it'll help our shooting and the defensive side. I mean, which side takes longer to become great at, offensively or defensively? It's obviously it's the skill side. And so you got to put
Absolutely.
more focus and time into that. But golly, there's probably a lot of coaches that's the thing that, do your players actually all get better individually throughout the year, or is it really only the one, two, or three that are getting the ball the majority of the time that are improving?
Right. And that, if you play 5-on-5, like if you have an open gym, and I finally realized this in the summer, everybody play well in Indiana at the time I was coaching. We couldn't coach them as a team in the summer. It could just be open gym. But I'd have the gym open for an hour and a half, and kids would get about 10 shots each. But if you do an individual skill work, you're doing like the 2-minute drill and some other drills, and you do that for 40 minutes, and they can get 100 or 150 or 200 meaningful shots. And to me, you don't do that in your practice, then you're wasting a lot of the time you put in the summer, the spring, and the fall, and you call them individual workouts. But if you don't continue that during the season, then to me, those skills are going to atrophy a little bit. And certainly, if they're not getting worse, they're not getting better. And I'm a big believer that if you're not getting better, you are getting worse. Because probably 20 miles away in the next gym, the team you're going to play next week, those players are probably getting better. So, in essence, if you're not improving on that, you are getting worse because you got to keep up with the Joneses, and you got to find ways to get better than the Joneses or the McCoys or whoever you're playing next week.
I think it's a good reminder, like for coaches, that why do individual skill work? Well, you better believe your rivals are, the people you're going to be competing against, they are. And I think that's a good way to remember the importance of it.
Yep. And again, I would encourage coaches, if you're not doing skill development, even, take your 5 starters and have a manager count how many times each of them gets to shoot in a 5-on-5 or even in drills that you're running. And then about how many more shots they could be getting if you're spending time in skill development.
Yeah, and players got to be careful of that during the spring and summer too, with their select teams and select practices of are they actually getting better, or because they feel like, well, I'm getting seen, but are you actually getting better? Because the time that if you take that, how many shots they actually get over a weekend, it's probably only 20 to 25. And that's if you're a good player. How many times do you have the ball in your hand? Well, less than 2 minutes a game, so less than 10 minutes over a whole weekend. So are you really getting better playing in those games? Or are you just, trying to get seen? And there's a difference between those two things.
Well, absolutely. And I also think that, if you are playing on those teams, you probably do have a chance of playing somewhere in college. But like you said, if you're only having the ball just a few minutes for a weekend, really nobody's really noticing you from that. But if you go out and you make yourself better and you do skill development workouts, whether you have a paid trainer or whether you're just doing some things on your own and working out really, really hard, I think that's going to help you get better. And, I know that once in a while you have kids that fall through the cracks, but for the most part, if you can play, college scouts will find you.
They'll find you. They're good at it. They're good at it.
And your coach is going to help you too. If you're a player listening to this, or if you're a coach, advise your players. You're going to do everything you can to get them exposure. You're going to call coaches. You're going to give them access to your huddle account so they can see. It has to be the old-fashioned way. You'll send a DVD in the mail. You'll find ways to get people to watch. It's just a matter to me of, if you're not developing your skills, then you're wasting your own opportunity, because when someone does want to see you, you're not really gonna have anything to show. In my mind.
What were the off-season expectations for your players?
Well, I think that the most important thing to me is that you're going to get better individually. And we always had a meeting with with our incoming players in the spring, and just told them, if you want to if you want to have a good team, then you're going to have to put in the time this summer. And it's your team. I mean, I'm the coach, and certainly I want to win. But I want to tell you right now, if you don't come in and work, then you're not going to have a great team. And we'll do the best we can. We'll work hard during the season. But if you want to be good and you want to win the sectional, and you want to repeat what last year's team did and do it even better, then you have to put in the time for skill work. I don't. I really believe it's important that they have time to be kids,
Hmm.
and I think it's important that they have time for their other sports as well. So what I asked was that they would come in as often as they could for a 40-minute individual development workout. Like I said, where you could get in 150 to 200 meaningful shots. Um, I really don't think it does a lot of good. And we did shell drill every day in practice, but I don't think it does much good to do shell drill in the middle of June.
Right.
I don't think they're into it. I don't think we did shell drill. We're going to defend the stuff what we're going to face this weekend. Run that in July, I don't think is worthwhile.
Hmm.
Again, the standards that we had were make sure you're taking care of yourself, you're being healthy, you're following the citizenship rules, you're following the code of conduct for the school, not breaking any training rules. If you are taking summer school, make sure you do a good job with that. And then as far as basketball, all I asked was about 40 minutes, 5 days a week if possible. If not, 3 or 4 days, however often they can get in the gym. Because I just don't think you can't demand everything, because they do have other things to
Yeah.
do. And then we went ahead and had we called them controlled scrimmages in the evening, where we'd have like the kids that had played previously would come back, and would need to see them, and we put them on one team, and then our current high school guys would play on the other team. And it was neat to see how the older guys kind of how much of your system they kind of played together with, and then how much being older they always made it tough for the younger guys. So that was kind of what I think is a good way to handle off season.
I really like what you said about the shell drill during June, and how they're not into it, and is that really going to make them better? What my teams at Faith, I've just made the decision over the years that once our season ends in hopefully late February, early March, then Faith basketball is done at that point, and everything that we do in the athletic period or everything during the summer is about the individual, about you getting better in your skill. And so it's all skill work. It is not Faith basketball as far as our schemes defensively or anything. And because I encourage them all to go play select ball. If the more guys that are doing that and competing against different people, learning different things, the better off we'll be next November. But I think especially when I was younger, I did struggle with, hey, okay, Faith season's over. Now we got to prepare for Faith season next year now, even though it's 8 months away. So I think it's important that we keep building them as individuals, making the game more fun for them.
I agree, and I think that's you have to keep that in mind. I think Mia Hamm said it about soccer that there was a 7-year-old girl that fell in love with the game, play for her, and that's really what it's about. I think um, Don Meyer said it's our job, it's their game, and that's what it is. I mean, it's for them, it's fun.
That's a great
You don't
reminder.
play.
Yeah.
Nobody ever goes out for the team to see how many games they can win on Coach Williams' resume. And I never had a player or a parent ever ask me for a resume. They want to know what you can do to help their child have a good experience, and the kid wants to go out and have fun. And like I said, that I know competing, people that understand competitiveness, they understand you're going to have to do shell drill in the season, and that's not the most fun thing to do. But they understand the competition part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line is the whole ball of wax needs to come together to make it a fun experience for them. because that's why you play. But you play basketball in high school to have fun,
Yeah.
and even if you have that rare opportunity to play in college, it's still you're doing it because you love the game because it's fun. And if it ceases to be fun in high school, then to me the coach has a major problem, and they really need to re-examine how they're doing things.
Hmm.
And every day, I'm not saying every day is perfect. I don't mean
Right.
that. I mean we all have ups and downs. We make bad, as a coach, you make bad choices on what plays to call. You make spend way too much time on one drill or something in practice. So I mean, there's ups and downs, there's ebbs and flows. But I think at the end of the season, if they can't look back and say, that was really something special and really something I enjoyed, then we're not really doing what we need to be doing as coaches.
What was your process in selecting JV and varsity teams? I think this will be really helpful because it's something that we all are faced with or deal with. What was your process?
Well, obviously, we all, we're going to run through some drills and play 5-on-5 and do some talent evaluation. But I think one thing I learned from a guy that I was assistant coach with for several years, Mike Sorrell, he picked it up from another longtime Indiana coach, Jim Rosenstiel at Lebanon, who coached Rick Mount. You may have heard the name Rick Mount. Was kind of played at Purdue, was All-American. But he had a form, and I continued to use this, that said that we asked the players what their expectations were. So the form said, if my chances are not 75% of being in the starting five, then I'd rather be dropped from the squad now. If my chances are
That's an
75%,
interesting question. Yeah.
75% of being in the top eight, I'd rather be dropped now. And then the third box was, I just want to be a member of the team. And even though I understand that that may include not having any playing time, or very little playing time, I just want to be a part of the program. And so we had two columns. One, they checked the box where it wasn't what their prediction was, it was what they were comfortable with, what could they accept. And so if they checked, starting five, like I had one kid check starting five, and I had him listed as the 13th best player in the program. And so that helped because then we can sit down and have a conversation and, look, I'm not going to use his real name, but look, John,
Yeah. Yeah.
here's where I see you. Here's where you see yourself. There's going to be some conflict there. We need to either change your expectation, or it's probably not a good idea for you to be on the team this year. And so he said, well, if you don't see me in the top five, then I don't want to play. And obviously I consulted the other coaches too. It wasn't just me. I mean, we all talked about where we saw him, and they may not all have him 13th, but certainly none of them even had him in the top 10. So that made it easier to have that conversation. I think it gave him a little bit of face. He'd saved a little bit of face from getting cut. We just said,
Yeah.
we'll just mutually agree that you're not going to be on the basketball team this year. And so, well, yeah, if you don't think I'm good enough to start, then I don't want to play.
I love
So
that. I love that idea of getting to know where their head's at more, before we start anything, because there's been times where I felt like this guy gets it and he understands his role and the why behind it. And then either from a parent conversation or him later on, you find out, man, like he was thinking something very different. So I think that's powerful.
yeah, and I thought it was a great tool. I picked it up from a couple of guys that were a lot more successful than I was, but it really helped me because then I signed it where I thought they were, and I had the parents sign it and I had the kids sign it. And we had one time where a kid came in and said, "I don't understand why I'm not playing." And I said, "Well, first of all, let's start out with this." I got out the sheet and I said, "You said that would be fine with just being on the team and not playing a lot." And so I said, that started where that's what I felt like was for you. And it made me feel better because that's how you felt and you signed it. And I said, things, obviously you change your mind or you get in, it doesn't end up being what you thought it was. You thought you could maybe overcome that and you can't. So I said, obviously there's a difference of opinion here, but I just want you to know that part of why I kept you on the team was because you'd signed this.
Hmm.
And as we talked through it, I think it helps him to kind of understand a little better and then kind of maybe think through on his own what he really thought his role in the team was realistically compared to the other players that we had. And then we had, some of the other times, some of the best players that I coached, guys that played in college, they would check that third box and they just want to be on the team. And you're saying, we're hoping that
You're a
you're going to be all
starter.
you're going to be all conference. Well, I mean, not saying that to him, but thinking in my mind,
Mhm.
if you're not averaging 15 a game, we don't have a chance to have a winning season this year. But your attitude is, I just want to be on the team because I like the program, I like basketball, I want to do what I can to help the team. So that was good too to see that some of the guys that, because the thing is, if he had checked, I want to start every game, um, he would have been right because I
Yeah,
would have to
yeah.
start every game too. But it's a lot about his attitude.
What about the big split or a JV to varsity? You have a kid that's maybe younger, but you could see possibly being on varsity, maybe not getting a lot of minutes, but just the idea of practicing with and getting exposure to some of those older players, or playing on JV where get to play, get to develop, but it's against that competition. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and, I think every school is a little different because it's size. Like for us, we every team I was with, we practiced JV and varsity together, and sometimes that would be 24, sometimes that would be 18, or sometimes it would be 15.
Mhm.
Where we maybe take some of the sophomores and freshmen and practice them together, and juniors and seniors practice together. So there was a lot of different things, but I think in terms of deciding where a kid should be, um, in my opinion, early in the year, you're much better off putting him on the lower end rather than on the higher end in
Mm.
terms of playing time. And I say that because if you get a sophomore, say that maybe he's going to be or she's going to be the seventh or eighth player on your varsity, then they're probably going to be a role player. But if you have them as the playing on the JV, they're probably going to take a lot of the big shots. They're going to be counted on to score, and probably that's what you're going to need them to do the next couple of years. So, in my opinion, you owe it to the kid to at least give them about half the season of the role that you feel like they're going to play in the future, and really just for them, again, their enjoyment. I mean, they they want to come out and play,
Mhm.
and so if you're playing, if a kid's that good, I'm going to play him 24 minutes on the JV. I don't know if that's what it is. Every state plays the same, a 6-minute quarters JV, but I'm going to play him every minute of the JV game. And then in Indiana, and I'm sure it's maybe that way in some other states, you could also play a fifth quarter um, on the varsity, but kind of like to get him in at the end of the game as like a fill-in role or whatever.
Mhm.
And sometimes we would play like 3 quarters JV, and then you'd be available for 2 quarters varsity, play him 18 minutes. So I think you're better off erring on the getting them more playing time and maybe at a lower level, whether it's a freshman that's not playing on the JV or a JV player that's not playing on the varsity. They're playing a lot. You can do that through the first half of the season. Then maybe you can look at getting them some more minutes on the varsity where it is more competitive. Um, and I think kids, to me, again, their experience is what they experience in games. I think in terms of practice, you're always better off having a good player practice against better players. So if
Mm.
you've got juniors and seniors that are stronger, bigger, and you got a talented freshman or sophomore, I think it's good to let them go against the varsity in practice. And obviously, you have to keep in mind what the kid's mentality is too. I can think of a couple of kids that thought they were, they thought they were better than those guys that were playing ahead of them, and so they didn't mind going out against them. And if they had a bad practice, then it didn't bother them. They had that spirit. They're going to be back at it again tomorrow. But I think you can really some kids, again, they're kids, like you said, they're maybe 14, 15 years old. Their spirit, some of them may not be exactly where it's going to be when they're an adult and what you think of as a coach. So I think you also don't want to put a kid in a position where you're going to destroy their confidence and you're going to destroy their, enjoyment of what they're doing.
Yeah, I've struggled with it over the years on what's the one. I think it's situational. I think you got to take it case by case. There's no hard fast rule, but I like your idea of starting them out low on the lower end And, instead of you're on varsity, well, you know what? At this point, it'd probably be better if you played JV, because as good as that sounds to you and makes sense for playing time, you're right. I think that can be a shot to their confidence. So making that decision early on, that might be best.
And I think this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. The whole key is talking to kids and then sitting them down and telling them, and taking the time that, here's what I'm thinking. Here's why I'm thinking it. I think it's better for you because I think you're going to get more shots. I think you're going to get more playing time. Whereas if you're on the varsity, you're going to be more of a role player. Certainly that's not saying that role players aren't important, but down the road, I see your role as being someone who's going to be able to score and help us in that role. And I want you to practice that role, and I want you to get good at it on the JV. Just being able to talk to them. Again, a job I took, there was a couple guys that were injured, and so we started a sophomore first 2 games before those varsity guys got back, and I told him, you're going to start these games, but my vision for you is you're probably going to be on the JV. And I think he appreciated that because I told him these other guys I think right now are better than you. That doesn't mean they're going to be better than you all season. That doesn't mean they're going to be better than you for your entire. You're going to be in their role someday, but right now, I just don't want you to. I don't want to set you up and think, well, I'm a starter, because you're not really a starter. You're starting because these other guys aren't available, and we need you for that. But then you're going to get lots of playing time with JV. I think he appreciated me,
Yeah.
Kind of letting him know where things stood. And obviously, all kids aren't going to, appreciate that. And
Yeah, but having those honest conversations though with them, instead of just this is what you're doing, and then expecting them to say yes, sir. I think nowadays, even more than ever before, kids want to know the why. They want to know the why. And the reason they want to know the why is they can find the why out on their phone for about anything in the world that they could possibly need. So with what we do as coaches, explaining the why behind it, I think is more important than ever before.
And I also wanted to take some pressure off of him because, and I didn't tell him, but I mean, if he had gone out and broke the school scoring record and, taken 50 points on 20 shots, and then I probably would have reevaluated. But I also didn't want him to feel like
that'd be a great problem to have. That'd be a great problem to have.
Exactly. But I just wanted him to know that I appreciated his, making a great effort. I appreciated him playing against guys that were older than him and being in a position that, there was pressure. And I said, I think you're the kind of guy that could handle it. And he definitely was. And it worked out because he ended up having a really good career. And as a junior and senior was really an outstanding player and had a great attitude. And so it was, I think that was a good start. And I think, again, in any situation, we'd appreciate that as a, if an AD, if you're the head coach and the AD has a meeting with the board and the board says, hey, if he doesn't have or she doesn't have a good year this year, they're probably going to be out. You'd expect you would appreciate your AD coming to you and telling you that's how other people are feeling. Whether I back you or not, these other people are not backing you. Maybe your last year. I think that you would rather know those kind of things.
Oh, than to get blindsided by it. Yeah.
Finding out at the board meeting in May.
That's right. One thing.
I'm just using that as an
sorry,
example.
go ahead. Yeah.
That's all right. I'm just using that as an example of that. I think, coaches want to be treated with respect, and even though we're adults and they're kids, they're still people, and you got to treat them the exact same way that you would want your superiors to treat you.
One thing I really appreciate that you've said this a couple times, and it's made me think is you do or say things to take the pressure off of the kid, and I think that's a great attitude to have, because there's going to be so many things that naturally just add pressure, and we can't do anything about that. There's just pressure with kids being kids now, and everything that they have to go through with that. But then as a coach, there's a lot of pressures with sports, and what can we do to alleviate certain pressures off of them, take it off their shoulders? I like the way you look at things that way.
Well, again, I think it needs to be fun for them, and you're right. There's scrutiny when you're an athlete. There's just pressure, the internal pressure of wanting to win, do your best, because if you're playing, you're competitive. So there are lots.
There's parental pressures.
There's parental pressure. There's pressure from sometimes depending on where it is or who it is, media,
Mhm.
local TV, radio, newspaper, and then unfortunately there's pressure on everybody from Twitter. And I don't pay any attention. I mean, at 55, I don't have to pay attention to that because I trained myself not to. But when you're 15, I know I couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
So they've got pressure everywhere, and just I think if they can come talk to you, if you get that relationship that hey, you know, dad's on me because I only got took 8 shots last game, and giving him some advice on how to handle those kind of things, or her. Just having a good relationship, that's I think goes a long way in taking pressure off of them,
Mm.
and then also not creating pressure. I think it's as coaches we can create pressure that doesn't need to be created.
Mm.
Um, this is a must-win game. This is a big game. This is how we got to. We say those things well, meaning well, and I don't think the coaches say those things to cause problems. But um, another thing from John Maxwell, and this is kind of how I handled stuff after a loss. Um, when you're a leader and you're confronted with a problem, you've either got two buckets. One bucket has gasoline in it, and one bucket has water in it. And so you're going to pour one. As a leader, you're going to react, and make sure your reaction is pouring water on the situation, not gasoline.
Mm.
So when you say, "Hey, if we lose this game, we're not going to have a winning season. If we lose this game, we're out of the conference race." That you're trying to motivate, but you're really not motivating. I think you're putting pressure. So just being conscious of those kind of things. And in my opinion, this is a great time right now in the spring and summer for coaches to think about all those kind of things. How am I going to react? What can I do to take pressure off kids? How am I going to react after we lose? What play do I want to run when there's 5 seconds to go? How do I want to make sure all my players are getting shots in practice? How do I want to make sure our culture is being an important part of who we are every day in practice? I think thinking about all that stuff now, when you're not dealing with pressure, and even once school's out and you're not teaching every day, I just think it's a great time to spend thinking about that kind of stuff because there's less pressure on you.
Mhm.
You've got less demands on your time, and you can make better decisions, I think.
Coaches, the one thing that every team needs is confident shooters. The last 8 years at Grapevine Faith, our teams have averaged 354 made threes each season. I love getting to share with coaches how our shooters train and, more importantly, how they think. If you would like to enhance your shooting culture at your school, contact me directly at jamodipodcast@gmail.com. All right, Coach, are you ready for the speed round?
Oh, absolutely.
30 seconds or so. I'm going to just throw short little questions out at you. First thing that pops in your head, you say it.
Alrighty.
All right, first one. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Chocolate.
Favorite NBA player of all time?
Gordon Hayward.
For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Used to say no, now I say yes.
Texting or talking?
Talking.
Favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving, no doubt, mashed potatoes.
This is a big invisibility or super strength?
Super strength.
Favorite junk food?
Anything chocolate.
Favorite
Reese's cups.
Reese's peanut butter cups. Reese, favorite childhood TV show?
I don't watch TV that much, but NCAA tournament.
There you go. All right, two more. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Believe it or not, I've never drank a cup of coffee in my life.
Wow. Wow, that's impressive. That's impressive. That just never the desire. I mean, what caffeine? Just
Unfortunately, when I was younger, I drank Coke in place of coffee in the morning, which
okay.
that was even worse. But I've gotten away from that habit now.
Yeah, a little sugar with your caffeine there. And then last one, Godfather or Star Wars?
Godfather.
Nice. Nice. Coach, man, this was awesome because I've followed you for a long time, and so I always appreciate the things that you put out there, and so thank you for giving up your time and talking with me today.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.